Well, let's continue on issues of graft in the public sector. Corruption Watch recently releasing a report titled South Africa Needs Clean Hands, highlighting how corruption has affected municipalities in the past 10 years. That report, based on the accounts of more than 5,000 whistleblowers, found that municipal managers are the most corrupt. Well, unfortunately, that corruption still continues. What work can be done to actually protect whistleblowers and create an environment that encourages whistleblowing? We're joined by the Public Service Commission's Michel Seloane, Democratic Alliance MP Adv Glynnis Breytenbach, and former head of the Asset Forfeiture Unit, Willie Hofmeyr. Good evening to all of you, and thank you so much for your time tonight. It's been interesting watching the evidence at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, because over the years that it has taken place, we've heard from witnesses that whose identities had to be kept secret, who have expressed concern about how their families and themselves had been hounded for coming forth with information that would be beneficial to the investigations of the state. In the same breath, we had the president, just this past month, also going before the commission, talk about the need to protect whistleblowers. And yet what we still have happening is the killings of those that are seen to be uncovering corruption or speaking out where they have seen corruption take place. Mr. Seloane, let me begin with you. What are we not doing right in terms of whistleblowers?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kathy. Let me start by passing our condolences to the family of Ms. Diokaran, who has been shot mercilessly by forces unknown, and the police have to investigate. So when it comes to the framework of protection of whistleblowers, it is there. We've got witness protection. We can, whistleblowers can blow the whistle anonymously. It is there. However, forces of darkness, which include criminal syndicates, are always 2 steps or 3 steps ahead of the legal framework that is being put. So we need to be more creative as government and society to be ahead of those forces of darkness. And forces of darkness, because they operate in darkness, let's shine the light throughout the whole country. Let's make sure that everybody knows what is good conduct and everybody behaves according to that conduct. And that will make forces of darkness, criminal syndicates, to be doubtful in attacking when everybody can see them when they do that. So they do all this work in darkness. So let's shine the light so that we can see them, we can see what is expected and say it and promote it and get the whole community to be able to promote that good conduct. And that way will go a long way. So we must move away from the past. In the past, snitches were not allowed. Impimbi were attacked because the people were against the system. Now this system is all ours. Let's protect it by making sure that everybody knows who is doing what at all times.
Willie, can we say that the infrastructure that exists currently in terms of the protection of whistleblowers has been sufficient to create this environment that Mr. Seloane is talking about, where everybody can come forward with whatever information that they have?
I don't think the infrastructure is nearly good enough, I'm afraid. And so to some degree, I'm making quite a radical proposal. Because I believe if you look at institutions that are trusted in South Africa, the Constitutional Court is probably the most trusted institution. So my suggestion is that the President should create an office for whistleblowers, or whatever you're going to call it. And he should put a couple of retired constitutional judges in charge of that office, to recruit staff, to set up the infrastructure, all those sort of things. But that you have a place where people can report securely, but also where they have absolute trust in the people that they are reporting to. Because too often, as we've heard from many whistleblowers, When they've tried to blow the whistle, they get victimized for doing so. So I think one needs a very powerful institution, such as what I'm suggesting, that really will have the moral authority, but also the power to ensure that whistleblowers are properly protected. I think there's a whole range of things that needs to be done. For example, in some cases, they should go onto the witness protection program of the NPA. And there's a number of other mechanisms that I believe the judges in charge of this process should be able to use. Also that they should be able to instruct law enforcement to investigate the allegations and to make sure that law enforcement does their job properly. So in a nutshell, I've got a lot more details, but those are the major proposals I want to make.
Advocate Breytenbach?
Good evening. Yes, good evening to everybody, and sincerest condolences to the family of Mr. Deokaran. What an appalling occurrence.
Absolutely. And you know, again, it's brought this conversation to the fore. When you look at just the suggestions that Willie Hofmeyr is making, setting up an office for whistleblowers, making sure that there's witness protection available. For some of those, and again, I'll use the Zondo Commission of Inquiry as an example, some of those who were offered witness protection by the Commission ended up declining or pulling out because they believe that those systems have been infiltrated and that in fact it would be more dangerous for them to be part of witness protection than trying to find some other means or ways of keeping themselves safe. That certainly is not encouraging at all.
Look, there is a very inadequate set of regime for witness protection and for whistleblower protection. We have the Protected Disclosures Act. It's a step in the right direction. It certainly isn't ideal, and it doesn't cover every possible instance of whistleblowing. But we do have the Protected Disclosures Act. The difficulty isn't, and I have listened carefully to what the two previous speakers have said. The difficulty isn't the whistleblowing, the physical act of whistleblowing. That can be done with a reasonable amount of security and safety. The difficulty comes after that. At some point, your identity is disclosed. At some point, you have to give evidence. At some point, people will know who you are. And in a system as compromised as ours is now, that happens relatively quickly. So, you know, you would need, in order to have proper protection for whistleblowers and to give whistleblowers confidence, you would need a seriously jacked up witness protection program. Our witness protection program, with the greatest of respect, is not like the one in the movies where you get your entire family gets a new face and you're going to live in Hawaii. It's not like that at all. It's a very onerous program. It's not pleasant. It requires you to dislodge yourself and your family completely from your surroundings, your family and friends for an indeterminate amount of time in not ideal circumstances, where you live on a very tightly controlled budget. So, you know, it's not like going to stay in the one and only for 2 or 3 years. That isn't how witness protection works in South Africa. The budget is a small one. The resources are constrained, both financial and human. And yes, you know, Willie says, put some judges in charge, not a bad idea, and let them instruct the police to do their job. Well, you know, with the greatest of respect, again, the police's budget has been constrained for years. Their budget is so woefully inadequate. And they are so woefully under-resourced with regards to human resources and materials that that's a pipe dream. You know, it's not going to happen. There's nobody to do that job that must be done. Witness protection, there's nobody to do that job that must be done. And so whistleblowers largely are left to their own devices. And it is a hazardous occupation being a whistleblower. I can personally attest to it. So, you know, it's not something that people do easily because of the risks involved, and because not only the risks to themselves, but there's often a huge risk to your family. And that's not a decision that you take easily. So until we can properly protect whistleblowers, until we develop a regime that will allow them to report safely and securely and anonymously and keep it that way, and when necessary protect them physically, we're going to have these kinds of things happening. And the more these tragedies take place, the fewer people are going to come forward as whistleblowers. The incentive is a disincentive.
All right. Let me thank you all for your time tonight and those very insightful reflections. We've run out of time for this conversation. Let me thank Michel Seloane with the Public Service Commission, Willie Hofmeyr, former head of the Asset Forfeiture Unit at the NPA, and Democratic Alliance MP Advocate Glynnis Breytenbach.